March 13th, that's when the Juggernaut Edition is set to come out for State of Decay 2, and it's early March right now, so there is a little bit of time remaining for us to prepare for the launch of the Juggernaut Edition. And what I want to do is give you some actionable advice, easy things that you can do to prepare for the release of the new Juggernaut Edition so that you can just jump right in and hit the ground running. So let's get started. When the big patch arrives on March 13th, we're going to be getting a new map and a new melee combat style known as heavy weapons, and I'm going to go ahead and guess that those are the two big things that you're going to want to experiment with. So the first thing you're going to want to know is that the brand new map known as Providence Ridge has 5 bases. One of them is your starting tutorial home. There are 2 medium-sized bases and 2 large bases. The 2 medium-sized bases are going to cost 1,000 influence each to move into, while the 2 large bases are both 8-man bases that cost 3,500 influence to move into each. So that's already 7,000 influence, just if you wanted to visit the 2 8-man bases alone. And if you wanted to visit all 4 of those bases that actually cost influence to get into, you're going to be paying 9,000 influence. And that's not even including things like purchasing outposts, which are going to push you beyond the 9,999 influence cap. So that's my first piece of advice to you. Any of your communities that you are planning to take into the new Providence Ridge, you might want to max out their influence, unless you know exactly what base that you want to move into so you can minimize the amount of influence you're spending to move into the base. And also remember that you can technically have more than 9,999 influence if you include the things that you can sell. They might not be liquid influence. You actually have to sell them first before you can actually use them, but there is time both to stockpile influence and valuable items to sell. And here's a few tips. Plague Hearts are a pretty good source of influence if you can clear the maps efficiently and then change maps and locate the new Plague Hearts efficiently. This can be done much easier if you have a survey vehicle which is capable of revealing the buildings and finding those hearts quickly. There's also the loot from the Plague Hearts, the Plague Samples in particular. You can use those to sell bulk Plague Cures for 500 influence each. You can also just start stockpiling valuable things to sell. And in particular, I recommend moving into Squellone's Brewing Company because it's the only base in the game that's able to create the craft beer, which sells for a decent bit, and it's also a pretty good place to create ethanol for making strong painkillers. Toss in a pill press mod to make the strong painkillers very cheap to produce, and you can turn a very good profit. If you don't have a pill press, use your trade depot in order to call in a medicine trader, and they have a chance, a decent chance, but not a 100% chance, to sell you one of the pill presses. Now, the other thing you're going to want is to try out the heavy weapons, and the most important thing to know about this is that Undead Lambs is not adding a brand new skill to be associated with heavy weapons. Instead, they are expanding an existing skill to accommodate heavy weapons, and that skill is actually Powerhouse in the Cardio family of skills. So this obviously means that there's time to get some characters that have the Powerhouse skill. You can either recruit people, level up their cardio, and see if they have Powerhouse, or alternatively, you can use a cardio retraining manual to force any of your existing community members to learn Powerhouse, whether or not they were capable of learning it originally, and these books will be sold for 1,500 influence from a mysterious trader on the weekends. So once again, another reason to start stockpiling up some influence since those books are not cheap. Now, another reason to stock up on those cardio retraining manuals is to do things in reverse. Maybe you get a bunch of guys with Powerhouse and you wind up not liking the heavy weapons. In that case, you're going to want to be able to get your characters off of Powerhouse, and once again, those cardio retraining manuals have got you covered. But on the other hand, in the event you do like the heavy weapons, you might find yourself wishing you could tinker with a character's other skills to see if there's any interesting synergies, so you might want the retraining manuals for the other skills. All of them are going to cost 1,500 influence, so you might want to stockpile those as well. And that's going to get pretty expensive, so you're going to want influence. Now remember, if you're new to State of Decay 2 and you're not too familiar with how influence works, I recommend watching my How to Farm Influence video, which will get you covered on the basics and intermediate elements of influence generation. Once the Juggernaut Edition hits on March 13th, I will be doing gameplay videos. I'll be doing a first look at the heavy weapons. I'll be doing guides on the new bases and whatnot for Providence Ridge. So I think that about wraps it up. Hopefully this taught you something new, or maybe reminded you of something that you wanted to do in order to prepare for the arrival of Juggernaut Edition, getting into Providence Ridge, and hitting the ground running. But at any rate, I thank you for watching. Like this video if it was interesting. Subscribe for future State of Decay 2 Juggernaut Edition content. And of course, remember that you don't have to be good to get good.